Most people sight in their bow through trial and error. That's how I did it for a long time too. What I didn't realize back then is that trial and error can be reduced to confirmation instead of guesswork. If you're open to looking at this entire process just a little bit differently, then this video is worth seeing through. This clip is pulled from my full Matthews Arc bow build, but it deserves its own walkthrough. To run this process correctly, I need real-world arrow speed at distance. That's why I'm shooting through a chronograph here at both launch speed and then gathering the arrow's 60-yard speed with the Garmin chrono. I just want to show you what system I'm using here. This is Precision Cut Archery. And no, we don't work with them in any way. I bought this several months ago, but I've really found it to be extremely accurate and very beneficial. So I want to show you how I'm entering this into the system so that I can basically figure out what sight tape I need and then how I need to set my pin gaps. So with our downrange speed, our 1 yard range, our launch speed was 299 feet per second, and then our 60-yard speed, which is where the Garmin Zero was 271.4 feet per second. And so then I can basically use this, and with their system, it sets the calibration for the drag coefficient of how fast that arrow is slowing down over that distance, and it can basically set my sight tapes and my sight mark here. So you know, I'll go into the system here, the sight marks. I'll use a caliper to figure out which tape I need. So if my base is 40 is 0 on the screen right here, and then from 40, if I measure on the sight tape from 40 to 100, it is 1.01 inches. So I've got a digital caliper, and this is essential for this if you're going to use this system. Just any good caliper for sure. Okay, we'll zero this out. So I need to go to 1.01, and it's very picky. I mean, that's very close. Let's see if we can get it a little closer. Okay. So now I go to the sight tapes here, and I'm measuring from 40 to 100. So it needs to go this way. 40. It's closer. Right there. Looks like the tape that I probably need, number 6. Because the 40 is lining up with the 100, almost right on. So number 6 is the sight tape that I'll need for my sight plate. So let's go ahead and put that on there. But that's not going to be the sight tape that we're going to base our pins off of, and I'll explain why. Let's go ahead and take this off. We'll put the number 6 sight tape on. Here's our sight tape. And we're using number 6. And of course, we'll double check all this to make sure it is on, and the limited testing that I have done, it's been extremely accurate. So it wouldn't surprise me if this is the perfect tape for what I need. If I line this up with this middle pin right there on 40, look at the difference that I have between the sight tape and my pins. It may not look like much, but at 60 yards and even 20 yards, that's a pretty significant difference. Now, I'm going to try to do this in a way where you can make sense of it, because it's very high level and it didn't make sense to me for a really long time. I'm shooting the 5-pin version of this UltraView sight, and when I shoot my sight, I center my peep sight on the housing. So when I do that, 20 to 60 yards, basically the angle that I'm looking through my peep sight does not change. However, when I shoot beyond 60 yards and I lower that sight down, the peep sight doesn't actually move in the string, but the way that I look through the peep sight changes. I'm lowering the string to look through that peep sight to then line up with that housing that dropped down to shoot that further distance. So because of that, since I'm looking through at a higher angle, essentially that sight with the sight tape and how much I have to move it down is less of a distance than the fixed pins, because when I'm shooting 20 to 60 yards, the pins and the peep sight, the angle I'm looking through, do not change. Therefore, the pin gaps have to be bigger since I'm not looking higher through the peep sight. I know it's hard to wrap your mind around, but here is the thing. If you sighted in previously how I showed in the Lift X video, where you find the sight tape that you need, which this case is 6. If I line my sight pins up with this, my 40 is going to be right on, my 30 and my 20 is going to shoot high, and my 50 and my 60 is going to shoot low. And what I found was that it was very close, but at 60 yards, I was shooting 4, 5, 6 inches low, and that's a pretty significant difference. So what I ended up doing was I was going 1 or 2 tapes above the tape that I was using. So in this case, I'd use number 8 instead of 6 to set up the sight pins. But with this system, and I entered all my information in here, it can tell me what my pin gaps need to actually be. So we'll do the exact same process. We'll figure out what tape it needs to be for my pins. I'll take out my cartridge out of my sight, and I'll match my cartridge on that tape and adjust those pins accordingly. So let's go ahead, let's take out the cartridge here. Back out that screw. There we go. Okay, so with this precision cut archery system, Tristan is extremely smart, and he takes this into consideration with his calculations. So if I go to the fixed pin chart, I can set it so I've got 5 fixed pins, and then it shows me my gaps for the distances that I should have. So 20 to 60 yards with this setup based on my launch speed and based on my 60 yard speed, the inch difference between 20 to 60 yards should be 0.634. So we'll do this same exact system on this. So I'll go down to 0.634 on my digital caliper. Okay. So now I need to find the sight tape 20 to 60 matches up here. So there, even sight tape 11 is too fast. Look at that. That's closer. That one's right on. Sight tape 14. So sight tape 14 is what I need to set my pins off of. So I'll do this exact same process, and I got to make sure I put these pins down the right way. So it'll be like this. So I'm going to line up the 40 pin in the very middle. Can you see that looking down? So I've got the 40 centered, and I'm going to adjust those pins so that 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 all line up with that number 14 sight tape. So now I've got my fixed pin gaps set based on the calculations that Tristan's Precision Cut gave me. It lined up with sight tape number 14. Now, I want to show you the difference between the pin gaps and my actual sight tape here. And we're going to go out, we're going to verify all of this. It's maybe not perfect if I maybe didn't put all the information perfectly, but I'll show you just how accurate this can be. And of course, we want to double check everything and make any minor adjustments we need to. But if I line this up with this middle pin right there on 40, look at the difference that I have between the sight tape and my pins. It may not look like much, but at 60 yards and even 20 yards, that's a pretty significant difference. So if you guys did set up your pins based on how I would have showed you in the last video, or based on some of UltraView's instructional videos on this, if you're centering your housing with your PEEP, this is why, essentially. Hope this makes sense. I know it's not going to make sense for most people if you're not having the problem yourself. And if you're centering the pin in your PEEP, it's not an issue whatsoever. It's just if you're centering the housing in the PEEP, since the housing does not move shooting 20 to 60 yards, but the housing does move 60 and beyond, and then you're looking higher through your PEEP sight, even though the PEEP sight in the string doesn't move. Way above most people's heads. Doesn't matter. If you follow this system, it seems to be very accurate. So let's snap this back in, and then let's get out and we'll verify it. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to find out, we're basically going to adjust the sight so that it's sighted in. We're at 60 yards right here, and if we just assume that all the pins are set and that the sight tape's correct, if we sight in at 60, everything else should be perfect. Now, I'm assuming it's probably off just a little bit, so if you did need to make any sight pin adjustments or anything, 40 yards would be exactly where you have to get it sighted in perfect in the soap housing position, because you cannot adjust a 40 pin, only the housing for the 40. So then you would need to adjust the individual pins if you're shooting high or low at 20 or 30 or 40 or 50 and 60. So let's get some shots here down at 60, and we'll try to get this dialed in, get everything lined up where it's supposed to. High. Move it up a little. Okay. I think it's still a little bit high. It broke just a touch low and hit on. We'll shoot one more. There we go. So we do have a little left-right breeze. I'm not super concerned about that. I'm mostly concerned about the up and down. This was the first shot. I moved the sight housing up, and then these are the last two shots here at 60. So let's, we've got to adjust our sight tape here. So we'll just loosen these screws, slide the sight tape up so the 60 is aligned with the pointer. Don't do that. Let's go shoot one more group at 60 just to see if we can verify it. And then we'll test 50, 40, 30, 20, and then we'll back up and shoot further distances and check the sight tape.
Nice.
Is that right on? Mm-hmm. Felt good. Just need two more like that.
Oh.
They're right in there? Mm-hmm. Good. I'm thinking it's probably right on. I'd say that's pretty good. We got two of them hitting exactly what I was aiming at, and one slightly high. But it could still be shooting a little bit high, but it feels like it's right on. So we're just going to call that good for right here. Obviously, over the next few weeks and months of shooting it, I can refine it further. But let's test our fixed pins. We'll shoot one arrow at 50, 40, 30, 20, and see if it's close or sighted in now that our scope housing base is set. So let's step back to 50 and shoot one. Okay, 50 right here. We'll just shoot one shaft here. Nice, a little bit high. Let's shoot one or two more. That one was right on. Let's shoot the last one. That was me. That still hit pretty good. I'd say 50 is pretty darn close here. I think these high shots are probably just me, honestly. They felt pretty good. Let's shoot at 40. Okay. 40 yards right here. Spot on. Let's shoot 30. Okay. Dead on. Shoot one at 20. It's amazing how accurate this system can be. Backyard. I mean, Tristan's software with that literally saves like hours of tinkering and finally adjusting those pins to try to get it perfect. I'm not going to say it's dead on right now until I've shot hundreds of arrows through it, but from 20 to 60, it's totally good enough to hunt with, that's for sure. 40, 30, 20, all hitting basically right where I was wanting it to. So now let's check the sight tape. We know that the sight tape is different than where we set the fixed pins. So we know it's on at 60. Let's back up. We'll go all the way to 100. And it's a bit windy, but we'll shoot a couple groups at 100 and we'll see if our sight tape is close or even spot on. So let's step back and launch some. Okay, 100, right on the button. All right, moment of truth. So we're just going to roll our sight tape down to 100 so our indicator matches up with that. Again, we're just using our bottom pin with the 5 pins, 20 to 60. Bottom pin is the pin that I use when I roll on the sight tape. Now, I just want to say, if I shoot these 3 arrows and they're all a little bit high, or if they're all a little bit low, I can just adjust the sight tape so that 100 is on, and I bet if I go back to 60, I find that it's even more accurate than where it was before. I only shot 2 ends at 60, and if I'm an inch off at 60, it could be hard for me to see because I can't quite shoot that good. But at 100, it could be 2 or 3 inches off, which is a lot easier to see. So let's shoot this group of 3 arrows and see how they land. It's a bit windy. Do you see it?
Oh, I must say it was high right.
It's like an inch high right. It's like right on the edge of the paper.
Okay.
We'll shoot 2 more here.
Right next to it.
Nice. This bow shoot's awesome. All right, 3rd time's the charm. How's that one?
That one looks really high.
Let's go take a look at them. That's a pretty good 3 arrow 100-yard group, isn't it? Mm-hmm. That's awesome. I definitely don't shoot this good at 100 yards every time, that's for sure. That's like the size of a baseball. I would say exactly what I said before I shot it. I think that it probably is shooting just slightly high. I think I could move the housing up like just a half a yard at 100, move the sight tape back up, and then go shoot 60 and it still be right on. And then I would say from 20 to 60 and then 60 to at least 100, it's sighted in perfectly. So I am really, really impressed with this new 2026 Matthews Arc. This thing shoots amazing.